Hi, everybody in the EBnet community, and welcome to EBnet Stream. In their recent announcement, Alexforbes CEO Darby de Villiers made a very ambitious commitment. I'll read it for you. We are making financial advice available to over 1 million members in our base, across all ages, income bands, and levels of wealth. Every single one of our members can now access financial advice from Alexforbes to help them invest, plan, and reach their investment destination. On EBnet Stream today, I'm joined by Viresh Maharaj, the CEO of Alexforbes Retail, who I'm guessing will need to deliver on this promise. Welcome to EBnet Stream, Viresh.
Thank you, Natalie. It's great to be on.
I want to start with a comment that you've actually made publicly to your clients, where you've called financial advice a superpower. What do you mean by that?
Well, Natalie, if you look at the range of research that's been put into financial advice locally and abroad, financial advice is shown to have a number of positive effects on individuals saving up and investing towards various goals. More recently, we saw Momentum and the Bureau of Market Research report come out, which was prominently profiled on EBnet, that showed that those who receive financial advice have on average 9.5 times more invested than those who don't. That finding, complemented by a range of other research globally, indicates that those who receive financial advice are on a better footing to achieve their investment outcomes. In our view, there is no other single mechanism available to us to make an outsized impact in the lives of people than providing professional, expert financial advice to help them reach their investment destination.
So that's a lofty ideal, this idea that financial advice is available to every person and every member of your administered funds. How do you plan on kind of overcoming some of the challenges, and how do you plan on reaching all of these members?
Well, Natalie, it's a journey we've been on. Yeah, so it's not something that just happened. We've been on this path and aiming towards this promise for at least the last 4 years. Part of that was capacitating our advisor team. I will say this, and I've said this in many forums already, I genuinely believe that the Alexforbes retail capability is the best kept secret in South African financial services. We now have over 280 advisors. We serve over 60,000 individual clients and advise them on over 111 billion rands of retirement savings to help them improve their retirement outcomes as an individual advice capability. So we've built up our footprint and capacity across our advice team, across South Africa's regions. For instance, we have mapped each and every single of those 1.1 million members we administer per region, per employer, per segment, through to a human advisor. So if we get a call, if we get a contact from any of our members saying, I need help, there is a specific advisor who is familiar with their fund, who is familiar with their benefits and options available to them to make the most of those options and benefits. We've also implemented a robust member engagement suite, because having the advisors alone is not good enough. They've got to be accessible to the members. Members need to know they exist, need to know they've got access to them and how to engage and contact them. Hence, we've put a number of mechanisms in place, digital and in person, which I can demonstrate to you a bit later on, but effectively making this human advice available on the primary journey points of joining a fund, leaving a fund, whether through retrenchment or resignation, and building up to and through retirement. As we sit here today, even before Darby's promise, that availability to access advice was there. This promise now puts it front and center in our customer value proposition through to Alexforbes members. What's now been enhanced is that while we've always been able to deliver advice at those key journey points, irrespective of income, age, or wealth status. So what differentiates us, we're not just aiming at the wealthy. We're aiming at every employee within one of our clients. We can help them through financial advice. But what's been enhanced now is with our acquisition of Outvest from Outsurance last year, now that we've integrated that digital automated advice platform, we're also able to provide professional financial advice, accredited financial advice, through to all of our members who wish to invest for goals, including but not limited to retirement itself. So if they need advice on saving for a move in the next 5 years, or saving for their education or their kids' education, or investing a top up into an RA or TFSA, you can do that directly anywhere you want. But through Alexforbes, you receive the superpower of financial advice. When you invest upfront and on a regular ongoing basis at key milestones, the automated advice keeps you on track towards that investment destination. In fact, our analytics show that those clients who receive and use that advice consistently through that journey, 86% of them actually reach their investment objective. Now, that's a step that we don't think exists anywhere else in the advice industry. We are able to show and prove that 86 out of 100 people that use this advice actually reach their set investment destination. Now, by combining these capabilities, which we've been working on over the last number of years, we're now in the unique position to make a promise through to our entire client base that with us, irrespective of who you are, you have access to the superpower of financial advice to help you make better financial choices that have a demonstrable empirical effect on your lived experience and the outcome that you're actually chasing.
You've hit so many common points and challenges that the industry has faced on this exact issue. So I'm going to try and unpack them in the next few questions. The first is you talk about advice at key points in the journey. And I think one of the massive hurdles that the advice and the benefits industry in general has experienced is member apathy. So it's fine to hit a member with advice, not hit them physically, at key points. I'm getting married, I'm having a baby, I'm moving, you alluded to a few of them. But how do you plan with this new model or this advanced or refined model? How do you plan on positioning advice as something that members want to actively engage with rather than just, oh, I better check my benefit statement because I'm planning on resigning right now?
So that's the golden question. That's the $1 million question. How do you get people to care?
Yes.
We've recently seen many calls for action around more education, more communication, more financial literacy education. A couple of things to that, and then we had the conversation the other day. Trustees and ManCo members would be pleased to understand literacy education is actually part of our school syllabus today. It's part of the public school CAP syllabus from grade 7 to grade 9. So financial literacy is there for our kids. Perhaps we as adults could do more to educate ourselves and to help engender financial literacy with our children as well, and not just the school system, which is doing what it can. But is communication alone enough? And I often ask this question. We know, and for those of you who are listening, you can have this thought experiment yourself. Do you know, are you educated to know that you need to exercise 5 times a week, 30 minutes a day in order to be healthy? And whenever I do this, 9 out of 10 people put their hand. Say, okay, how many of you actually do that? And 8 people put their hands down. And the reason is they're educated. They've been communicated to. They know what the right answer is. But there's a difference and there's a gap, there's a chasm between being financially literate and caring to make a choice, caring enough to make a difference, caring enough to do something about the situation you're in. Typically with exercise, it's in your early to late 40s, early 50s that you have a health incident that causes people to change their lifestyles and make a difference. With retirees, the stats have been there for the last 10 plus years. People first seek advice 9 years on average before they retire, which means that you've got some scope to make better choices, but it's better to seek advice 19 years before you retire. Your opportunity to make a difference is far bigger. So with that in mind, is it good enough to just communicate? And that's a standard answer that many funds go to. And the answer is categorically no. If it was, that 6% figure would not be 6%. What we have done instead is to be there and to be available when the need for advice arises, when that moment of truth arises. How do you be available and proactive to engage that individual at a point in time when they want the education, when they want the awareness, because they need to make a decision? So for instance, we've got outbound communication for new joiners prior to joining, when they join, 30 days and 90 days after joining. Active members receive communication at least once a year through WhatsApp, and people exiting for various reasons. And as they build up to retirement, they also receive this proactive communication because through our administration capability, we know they're coming in or they're going. We then have the data, the cleanliness to be able to engage and feed that into the tech suite we built to reach out and measure and manage each of these interactions. And through these interactions over our financial year that runs April to March, we were able to interact with over 450,000 members. Now just think of that. Most, in fact, all umbrella funds in South Africa, none of them have 450,000 members. And we've physically interacted with that group of members electronically and in person through a range of different mechanisms, including outbound WhatsApp, including in-person wellness days, including pre-retirement seminars, because it's at those journey points that most people are most likely to want to do something about their financial situation. Now, does it mean that all of them do? No. But by having this consistent, sustained approach at a point in the future, when the need arises, we want all of our members to know that this superpower of financial advice exists. This is the impact it can have on your life. And this is how you can access it. And guess what? A lot of people think that financial advice is not for them, or that it's only for the wealthy, or that their situations are not complex enough to warrant financial advice. And those urban legends are actively out there, and we're trying to bust them. And this process, this engagement, is a mechanism to bash through many of these obstacles, to be present, to be relevant, and to resonate with how we can actually make a transformative impact in the lives of our members.
If I could add to that, I mean, I am an accredited financial advisor and I have a financial advisor. So I think it is an important message to get out there that financial advice, as you've rightly said, is a superpower and keeps you accountable. So if I can lend my voice to that cause, there we go. I think my next question involves, and it's something you touched on, it involves the business model that typically financial advisors and financial advice practices are accused of. We only look after the wealthy. So I have to be rich already in order to warrant having a financial advisor. You mentioned that your model will actively engage and respond to the needs of everybody in the spectrum. How do you plan or foresee doing that?
So firstly, let me say this. I have got great empathy for IFA practices who, due to the risks and costs of running an advice practice, have to focus on the economically viable and commercially viable segment. That is a reality of running a sustainable business. The net effect of that, though, is that there is then a missing middle and missing lower segment, because it is not economically viable for a CFP, for instance, to apply themselves to someone who wants to invest 100 Rand a month. It is not sustainable. How we have managed to solve for that is we're part of a larger corporate, and our corporate has a vertically integrated value chain from administration through advice, through consulting into investment management. And because of that integrated value chain, we are able to serve the needs of that value chain. As Alexforbes, our clients are not only the wealthy members within other retirement funds we serve. It's the retirement fund that we serve. All members in that retirement fund, each and every single person, each and every single belly button is a client of ours that we have to deliver advice to. And because of that, we have geared our advice platform and our advice frameworks to be able to be relevant to those retirement fund members at those key journey points. Now, that doesn't mean that we're there to provide short-term insurance advice or that we're providing tax advice. It is a limited set of investment-related advice. And specifically for retirement fund members, our human advice focuses on the investment decisions and retirement fund decisions that an individual makes building up to their retirement outcome. Certainly in our wealth segment, and we've got a substantial wealth book, that advice extends far beyond into the discretionary wealth management space as well, but that is a sliver of the typical membership base. In addition, what and where most advice practices do struggle with is how do you become relevant to discretionary investment needs when those needs are not big enough to be economically viable. And that's where technology comes in. We're living in exactly what we're doing right now. We're recording this from Joburg to Cape Town, making use of technology. And that principle is what we've applied. The platform that we purchased from Outsurance, Outvest, which is now branded Alexforbes Invest, is an absolute gem. This capability, the automated advice available via Alexforbes Invest, is spectacular, and this end-to-end suite of advice and transactional capabilities is unique in the South African context and enables us to scale out the access to accredited, algorithmic-based financial advice to the 1 million members. In fact, it's available to all South Africans. It's just that we want our members to use it and to be able to know that it exists, but it's there for anyone to use as they see fit. Combination of being relevant at these key decision points, our relationships with employers and our value proposition, say, for instance, through an umbrella fund like Alexforbes One to these employers, that advice is there for each and every one of your members, combined with the clever, intelligent use of technology, puts us in this unique situation. Not just relative to advice practices, who I do have empathy and sympathy for, but also to other umbrella funds and administrators who simply do not either have the scale, the technology, or the advice footprint and network to be able to make a promise like this.
If I drill that down to its granular conclusion, the statement that you've just made, are we saying that only businesses who have scale, technology, and a footprint can deliver this kind of meaning or this kind of service or advice to the average South African? Or do you see this kind of model being copycatted or utilized in other areas? I'm thinking, for example, of retail businesses who have these huge footprints. People, and I'm talking retail, not investment retail. I walk into my closest Ackermans and I get financial advice. I mean, is that something that we could think about?
Well, it would have to typically be a limited range of advice if you go down that route. It's not going to be, so our human advisors provide financial planning and financial advice. The technology provides financial advice, but the individual must select their investment goal or destination. So you can go in and decide, I want to save up for an RA, and this provides advice and fulfillment and ongoing reviews and maintenance. To walk into a Checkers, the chances that you're going to get a human advisor able to do that for you are limited. Are they able to use technology like Alexforbes Invest? Absolutely. And those are conversations that we are pursuing with a range of potential partners to be able to make this automated advice available across their footprint of client-facing stands and stores. To your question, does it take technology, scale, and a human footprint to do what we're doing? Yes, but it takes something a little bit more. It takes intent. It takes actual intent and action. For years, years and years. There are many calls to action, many conversations that have happened around the 6% and how to move the needle. And we're saying, actually, no, the answer is very simple. I want to use the analogy. So there's the old story of Alexander the Great, and he was confronted with this intractable challenge of the Gordian knot, where you have to untie this massive knot. And all he did was take a sword and cut straight through it. And the coincidence is there that our group name is Alexander Forbes, and named after the same individual. I'm not sure if that was his surname, at least, but at least the first name's there. The provision and promise of financial advice is the proverbial sword through the Gordian knot of our industry that says, here is the answer. It is the most obvious answer in the world available to improve the 6%. Was it practical to do? No, because the structure of the industry creates complexities to do this. The Alexforbes model uniquely provides that sword that cuts through that knot. And by providing access to professional, accredited, expert financial advice, we will transform the financial journeys of our members.
One question that came to mind while you were mentioning that and sharing that story is around this idea that only the members of your funds can access this. Yet when we spoke about the retail environment and possible partners, if I was a trustee of a fund that isn't administered by Alexforbes, is that an obstacle?
So there's maybe three lenses to that conversation, Natalie. So let's start with, we have, and it's a stated ambition, it's in our group reports, Darby said it himself at the results, we are actively partnering with IFA practices in the market. It's not a space that Alexforbes has traditionally played in or has dabbled in to an extent before. We're now going in to be a serious partner to IFAs who want to work with us and make use of the machinery available to our advisors. The machinery in the form of our umbrella fund capability, our DFM capability, our advice tech, like Alexforbes Invest, can be white labeled for them. So there is not just an olive branch, there's an open embrace to IFAs who want to plan for their future in a world that harnesses and unleashes the power of technology and the machinery currently being used within Alexforbes. The second layer to that is anyone in South Africa, as long as you're over 18 years old, so there's an R18 on this, can access advice via Alexforbes Invest. You can log in now and access the advice. So you don't have to be a member of Alexforbes. The challenge we have, and it's the priority for us, is how do we create awareness of advice to our membership first and foremost? That is our primary scope and most in scope of what we are here to do as an organization. Let's make a difference in these members' lives and then create that awareness more externally. And that time is coming. For trustees and employers administered elsewhere, the most obvious answer is be administered by Alexforbes. We are South Africa's largest, most serious administrator, and there's value and benefit to that over the long term because we're able to do things like this. So consider that as option number one. Option number two is our advice capability can be bolted on to other administrators and to other employers. So there's an opportunity to engage. Does it work as seamlessly? No, because our administration at Alexforbes integrates with our workflows that we built to serve individuals. So can we do exactly the same elsewhere? No. It works best when you are integrated. But can it work if your administration is elsewhere? Yes, and we can help you solve for that.
I wanted to touch on something that came up, and we need to wrap up. I see I've taken more of your time than we originally planned, but while I've got you, this morning we published on EBnet Alan Gray's Advisor Barometer. And in that barometer, they talk about the the sweet spot of the number of support staff to client ratio. So that is, the number of people needed, humans, belly buttons needed to serve the clients involved in that person's portfolio or in a financial planning practice. The picture that I have in my mind that you've sketched is obviously great tech, the ability to be able to contact and reach members and offer this financial advice. But is there not a tipping point in terms of this client to advisor ratio? And is that something that concerns you?
So yes and no. In a traditional sense, yes. If you are anchored to the historic and legacy ways of providing advice, and bear in mind that the typical advice practice has to spend a fair amount of energy in actively prospecting and going out there and cold calling and trying to get business. Our clients walk through the door effectively because we're there helping them out their financial journeys. We did 600 wellness days at employers last year. That's 2 wellness days per business day. And so we don't have an issue in attracting clients into our retail business. And so we're able to focus on serving those clients. We're able to focus on other matters, not just new business development. So that's one. The two is we are currently in the process of replatforming a number of our tech capabilities. It's not a state secret. It was announced a couple of years ago. We sold our individual administration capability, known as Afika, through to Sanlam. And by the end of this year, the migration to Glacier's new platform, which is best of breed, cutting edge and new, will be complete. So we've got that modern technology available through to our advisors, calibrated and customized for us. We are also implementing a new advice tool called Advisor Connect. So our advisors will be using, again, best of breed, cutting edge technology to deliver advice. Ratcheting these tools and capabilities together with Alexforbes Invest means that we're not anchored to historic practices, but are geared for a future that is built on technology. And a recent development is we're setting up an AI lab within our retail space to focus on how do we become an AI-first retail advice and investment practice with full-time employees whose only role, only obsession is driving us forward in an AI-first manner. So those stats are relevant to certain business models. I don't think that they're relevant to us as we are today and will become wildly irrelevant to the future that Alexforbes is building.
It's so encouraging to hear the thinking behind challenging what, in my opinion, has been the industry's biggest challenge or obstacle that it created for itself, and that is its structure. And so it's very rewarding to hear that there are thinkings and models and challenges that you have really thrown down today to your competitors and to members out there. Overcome the apathy, overcome the business structures obstacles, and get involved in your financial planning. It is as important, if not more important, than the exercise you referred to, earlier in our chat this morning. Having said that, I think we need to wrap up. Unfortunately, I have to attend a webinar that talks about AI versus the human brain and who wins, so I will share that with you. But Viresh, thank you very much for spending some time with me today.
Absolutely, Natalie. If I can just leave the viewers with one statement. In our view, you've got to combine that insight with advice to be able to make the impact that's possible on our members. And it's no coincidence that that's exactly the Alexforbes value proposition.
Thank you, Viresh. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Natalie.